you won't.
So that if people want to go back and look at the talk again, it will be up on YouTube for you. So,
I don't know.
well, that's it.
Okay.
I'm already on YouTube. So
I don't think he'll be
Alright,
in
let's
there.
make a start.
He'll have to be in the film.
So we chose the Three of Wands today basically because it's Sun in Aries and spring is finally here. And I came out of the house this morning, I was with my scarf and my gloves, it's like, Jesus, I'm boiling. Everything's off. But yes, thank God. So I'm going to start with the Golden Dawn stuff. As you know, I'm the top geek here. And then Jane is going to do all the other decks, which I have no clue about. I'm going to use the cross as basically the poster boy for Golden Dawn, simply because it makes more sense. Crowley calls it the Lord of Virtue, which you see in front of you. And people get asked, I did as well, like, why the hell is a Wands card called Virtue, of all things? Well, the reason why is to do with the meaning of the word itself. Bit of background story to explain. Crowley, as a very educated man, he studied English literature at Cambridge. So he really knew what words actually meant. So virtue, the root of the word comes from the Latin vir, which literally means man. So virtue literally means manly qualities. Right? So it doesn't mean stuff like nowadays if you say someone's virtuous, you're literally calling them a slag. But back then, if you're calling someone virtuous, you're calling them a wuss or a sissy. You know, if you think about your Shakespearean English, I don't know, by virtue and right of conquest, you must swear allegiance to the Queen of England, or something like that. That's how the word was used in that sort of context. And so you see how the Three of Wands was used to sort of mean like entrepreneurship, daring. I mean, in the Rider-Waite, you have a guy looking out to sea of the ships, because the ships were basically, you know, the guy's dream of adventure, in a way, back in the medieval ages. You know, if you want to, it's the equivalent of going out to slay a dragon or something, you know. Go to unexplored places, initiating new things. Now, the Golden Dawn calls this established strength. Now, I have no idea why it's established, because you're starting stuff. But the Lord of Virtue, I think, is a better name for it, as a whole. And I think that's me well and done for the Golden Dawn. But thank you very much, guys. Handing over to Jane.
Okay, thank you. I'm just looking again at the Waite version, and Rachel Pollock, quite interestingly, takes the opposite view in her most recent book, the New Tarot Handbook. She actually views this person as looking out over things and distancing themselves. So she says it's somebody who's maybe afraid to commit, doesn't want to get into a relationship, keeping their distance. And what she says is reversed is when it's to do with getting a business up and going. So she's, in her new book, the New Tarot Handbook, she's actually seems to be, unless it's a complete and utter misprint, she seems to be interpreting it in the opposite way to what people would normally interpret this to be, where the threes follow on from the twos in the deck. And in fact, that sort of takes me over the page, actually. I'll come back to the elements in a minute, but threes in tarot, the numbers all following sequence. So with the two, you've got two things coming together to get something, to get moving on an idea, and the three doesn't exactly consolidate it, but it's a product of whatever you did in the two. So you've got the Two of Wands, the guy looking out, you know, holding in the Waite cards, you know, with the globe in his hand, saying, you know, which path shall I take? And the idea, I think, the thinking here is that, okay, now, either the ships are going out or coming in. This is a debatable point. Different authors have a different take. Either you set something in motion and it's going, you know, and it's underway, or you set something in motion and you're just waiting to reap the rewards. So the interpretation of whether the ships are going out or coming in can vary. And you can take that, so the three in the major arcana is the Empress, and you can see how this card, although this is a manly card, as Henry said, you can see how it relates to the Empress in the sense of bringing something to fruition. So the three is getting something that's been started and giving it, nurturing it, helping it to bear fruit. And so the threes in tarot, not just the Three of Wands, they all have that relationship in that the threes represent the product of what you did in the twos, normally. So that's the threes. And just to talk about the element of wands, so it's wands are sort of nice, sort of fiery. Well, they relate to correspond to fire, so they're sort of always sort of red or orange or nice bright sort of fiery colours. The season that these represent is spring, and they are southern hemisphere cards, so it's actually quite warm. And these, as Henry already mentioned, represent sort of creativity, entrepreneurship, projects, drive. It doesn't necessarily have to be work, but it would be something you care about. It's a project of some sort. And apparently the vices of this card are pride, willfulness, restlessness. So that's wands. And I think, if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to actually just ask, how do you all interpret this card? It'd be good to get some ideas from the floor, actually. Having heard from us what the books say, what do you guys think?
Pretty much what you said, what you feel passionate about, and what sparks you, like what turns you on, basically. You know, what gets you going to act.
That's the three of wands, yeah?
Well, yeah, but wands to me in general, just action.
Yeah, action. Any other thoughts?
I lately read something opposite, or maybe I'm also confusing this with the two of wands, but I think it was for both cards. You have done your bit, the ships are out, and now you have to wait. And be patient, don't dangle around.
Right, so you read this as waiting for something to be reaped. And
done your job, and now you...
And he is sort of pretty just standing there, isn't he? He's not doing anything. Yeah, so...
A little bit like the one in the two with the cloak.
Okay.
For me, it's a little bit like starting an adventure, that the ship is coming in, which I'm going to board, and something new will start, something exciting will start.
Starting out something new.
Yeah.
Right, so you see it as beginning. This is the thing about the ships, are they going out or coming in? The starting out versus the being patient. You've started out and waiting for your rewards to come in.
But even if the ships are coming in, I mean, I still have to wait until they are unloaded, until they are there. I mean, I cannot jump into the water and bring them in.
It certainly doesn't look like he's going to, does he? Indeed. So you've still got to wait for that reward to come in, even if you've actually sort of started something out already. Any other thoughts on the Three of Wands?
I see it more at planning. That's the planning stage. You've not reaped anything. You've planted the seed. Now you're planning.
So your ships are going out then?
Yeah.
Yeah, or getting ready to go out. Okay. Yeah. Any thoughts wise?
Well, I slightly disagree, simply because going back to the twos, that's where you have all the power, but it's sitting there not doing anything. That guy, he's holding the world, but he's just looking at it. I'd say that's more sort of planning. Whilst here, he's exercising that power. He's sending ships out. He's initiating stuff.
We're seeing the results of...
I know that the three, because it's sort of still early in the sequence, it's not finished yet. It's still starting stuff.
But it's all in his hand. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Even on my deck, it's all in his hand on only one of the wands. The other two, I think, both of them, they are behind. They are not ahead.
So what's signalling something's been done?
Something's been done,
Yeah.
but it's not quite there yet. So he needs to work out what to do next.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah, it's not completion yet.
Yeah.
But when you're creating something, you start a project, and you kind of assess where you are, and then you kind of want to figure, well, do I want to do things a little bit differently, or keep going with my original plan? So maybe he's got some success, but there's still a lot more that he needs to accomplish.
Right, so he's monitoring progress. And
I sometimes think about him as like an artist who's painting a painting, and this is the point where he stands back and gets the perspective. It's you're doing something and you can get so drawn into it and stuck into it, and so into the details and everything, and sometimes you just need to stand back and say, okay, what am I actually looking at here?
You need a bigger picture.
Looking at the bigger picture. And I think part of it is because he's got a really scruffy room. you know, this is not a typical I'm a merchant or I'm a rich person. It looks like it's been patched up, spliced with other clothes, and he doesn't look professional or he doesn't look like he's got status yet, but he is sort of wearing that role in, maybe, sort of trying it on.
Okay. So he's still not, so he's not there yet.
Mm.
Maybe sort of when you're setting up your own business, if that's what he's done, then you're a bit broke, right? And you
Yeah.
can't afford the suit yet. You haven't moved into the corporates yet. Yeah, Elizabeth. Could you, has anyone ever seen the interpretation teamwork? I've come across that in some books, that some people view this as, and I don't know, and I can't think why, given that he's standing on his own, but maybe that is why, because he's on his own and he, perhaps, once you've got things going, you can't stay alone forever. You need to draw on the resources of others. But I'm not quite sure how that's depicted here, but I have read that somewhere in some books.
I could see where somebody would get that idea, because you are using, like, the ships. You're not physically going out there, but you're sending a crew out or a team out.
Okay. So these ships then could be sort of like an analogy, or an archetype. Is that the word? An archetype for a team, for drawing on the resources of others. Yeah, good point. Any other thoughts? Okay, well, to move on nicely then to the exercise, to get us thinking a bit further about how we would interpret the card, what we've suggested here is you sort of work with a partner, work in pairs with somebody, and so first one you do a single card reading, so maybe one of you has a relationship question or a career question, and then the other person answers it first of all just with the Three of Wands as a single card, and then draw another card as a clarifier, and then see what that does for the reading when the Three of Wands is combined with another card, to see if that actually changes or affects how you might interpret it. So we've come across lots of different interpretations, focusing mostly on projects, but if you take things like relationship or careers, hopefully quite obvious, and finance and spiritual development, how might you read it in that context? And then if you add another card to it, then what does the reading say? Is that okay? So if you want to have a go and just sort of pair up with somebody.
2, 4, 6 in here.
Are we-